Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're unpacking a genuinely fascinating piece of research from futurist Thorsten Meyer that highlights, honestly, one of the most bizarre paradoxes in modern tech. Picture this, okay? Your shiny new AI agent can scour the web, compare prices across dozens of retailers, pick the absolute best deal, and perfectly fill your shopping cart. But right at the exact moment of checkout, it hits a brick wall. It cannot actually complete the purchase. No way, right? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today as we break down the infrastructure and the regulation of AI agents in Europe. It all comes down to this one direct question. Why can an AI shop for you, but not legally pay for you? It's absolutely crucial to understand right off the bat that this is not a technology failing. The AI models have the capability for sure. They have the logic, the speed, and the deep integration to just click buy. What they don't have is the legal authority to do so. There's this massive pay versus shop gap, and it fundamentally alters how we have to think about the future of commerce. Section 1. The Agent Payment Gap. Capability versus legal authority. Okay, let's dive into this. To understand the bottleneck, we really have to look at geography. This gap between the capability to shop and the legal authority to pay is a uniquely European legal bottleneck. It's not a failure by the engineers in the AI labs. It's a direct result of how European payment security is structured by law. The root of the whole issue is Strong Customer Authentication, or SCA. Under Europe's PSD2 banking regulations, online payments require multi-factor human authentication, meaning you need 2 out of 3 factors, something you are, like a biometric fingerprint, something you know, like a password, or something you possess, like your mobile phone. Well, this entire regime was built by construction entirely around a human payer. An AI agent simply cannot satisfy these requirements as the law intends. I mean, an autonomous agent doesn't exactly have a fingerprint to scan, and it certainly isn't carrying a smartphone in its metallic pocket, right? Section 2. 2 continents, 2 foundations. Commercial versus statutory rails. Now, you might be wondering, aren't AI agents already paying for things over in the United States? And you'd be absolutely right. The difference comes down to the underlying infrastructure, or the rails that the payments actually run on. Over in the US, systems run on commercial rails. Think MasterCard's Agent Pay, Visa's Intelligent Commerce, or Plaid. These are entirely private infrastructures. If a product team at Visa decides, hey, they want to extend their network to allow AI agents to pay, they literally just make a business decision and flip the switch. It's incredibly fast, but it's also highly concentrated in the hands of a few major private firms. In the EU, however, the rails are statutory. They're defined by complex banking laws like PSD2, PSD3, and FIDA. A network can't just casually decide to grant an agent payer status. The legislature actually has to change the law. So it moves at legislative speed, which is notoriously slow, but because it's legally mandated, it's totally open to everyone. And this brilliantly illustrates the fundamental difference we're talking about here. As Meyer points out in his research, you simply cannot import that fast, private U.S. playbook into Europe's public statutory regime. A U.S. firm can't just bring their agent pay product over to Europe and switch it on. They have to wait for the European regime to legally define exactly how an agent authenticates, accesses data, and pays. It is a completely different foundational approach. Section 3. Rebuilding the payment rails, PSD3 and the PSR. But Europe definitely isn't standing still. And there's a massive catalyst driving the regulatory overhaul. $400 billion. That is the staggering forecast in payment fraud losses over the next decade. To put that into perspective, it's a completely astronomical vulnerability, and it's the major driver pushing Parliament to rewrite the rules. As Europe figures out how to let non-human AI agents spend money, they have to do it within a framework aggressively designed to fight this massive fraud problem, not expand it. So the very rails that an agent must run on are being entirely rebuilt right now. So what does this rebuild actually look like? Well, the incoming PSD3 and Payment Services Regulation, or PSR, are bringing massive structural shifts. The real game changer for agents is mandatory API parity. This forces banks, by law, to give third-party agents first-class unthrottled interfaces that are just as good as the bank's own native app. No more banks quietly degrading connections to favor their own products. It also allows direct payment system access for non-banks, meaning fintechs won't be held hostage by sponsor banks anymore. But most importantly, it rewrites that SCA regime we talked about, which is exactly where the legal accommodation for an AI agent to authorize a payment will eventually have to live. Section 4. AI Act Guardrails and Regulatory Seams, the Rules of the Road. Of course, having the infrastructure, the rails, to make a payment is really only half the battle. We also have to look at the guardrails, meaning the rules that will govern an AI agent's actual decision-making before it even tries to click buy. Enter the European Union's AI Act. If your AI agent is helping you out with personal finance, doing things like credit scoring or assessing creditworthiness, the AI Act strictly classifies that as high risk. This classification triggers massive compliance burdens. We're talking mandatory human oversight, conformity assessments, and registration in an EU database. And here's the real kicker. It has extraterritorial reach. Even if a US lab builds the AI and hosts it on servers in America, if it serves a European customer, it falls under this heavy compliance tier. No exceptions. The challenge for developers right now is navigating this incredibly messy rollout. Actually, it's more like a giant puzzle where the pieces keep moving. The different parts of the AI commerce stack are maturing on completely unsynchronized clocks. We had the PSD3 provisional agreement back in late 2025. Then, the AI Act's FI-RISK deadline is expected to hit around summer 2026, though, that might slip to 2027. And the full applicability of the new payment rails under PSD3, that won't even land until around 2028. It is a massive planning headache for anyone trying to build a product today. So the crucial point is this. A single AI agent is governed by 4 completely different regulatory instruments. You've got the PSR governing its authentication, FIDA, the new financial data access framework, governing its data access, PSD3 governing the corporate license of its creator, and the AI Act governing its actual decision-making model. An agent literally inherits the friction, or what we call the seams, between these 4 overlapping, totally unsynchronized legal frameworks. That inter-regime friction is the true cost of doing business in European AI commerce right now. Section 5, the mandate bridge, crossing the regulatory gap. So with the final regulations still years away from fully aligning, how on earth is anyone supposed to launch an AI shopping agent in Europe today? Well, the answer is a pre-authorized spending mandate. Now, what's really interesting here is that rather than granting an AI full autonomous action, which the law currently flat out forbids, it uses a bounded delegate model. It essentially treats the AI not as an independent spender, but as a heavily restricted assistant, effectively building a bridge across those fragmented legal regimes. Let's break down exactly how this elegant bridge threads the needle. Step 1. The human authenticates the initial mandate upfront using their fingerprint or password. This perfectly satisfies the payment regime's strong customer authentication. Step 2. The human sets strict spending boundaries, like specific merchants or budget limits, and that entirely satisfies the AI Act's demand for human oversight. Finally, Step 3. The agent can now transact autonomously, but strictly within those pre-approved limits. It satisfies both massive regulatory regimes' demand for a human in the loop, but without causing annoying transaction-killing friction every single time the AI tries to buy something. It's an incredibly elegant workaround for sure. Section 6, the final verdict. Who wins the agent economy? All right, let's bring all these complex threads together. We've looked at the capability gap, the massive difference in global infrastructure, and the clever legal workarounds. Meyer summarizes the landscape neutrally, but it's a powerful point. He notes that the U.S. approach, relying entirely on private companies like Visa or Plaid, is undeniably faster and highly concentrated. They can ship products right now, today. Europe, however, is making a totally different bet. Europe is betting that durable, open, publicly owned rails created by law will ultimately produce a better, fairer agentic commerce market, even if it means arriving years later to the party. And that leaves us with this final, provocative thought to ponder. Which foundation will the global agent economy actually prefer in the long run? I mean, will developers and consumers flock to the fast, private commercial rails of the US, where a few corporations basically hold all the keys? Or will the slow, meticulously regulated but totally open public rails of Europe create a more level playing field that just wins out over time? The core technology is exactly the same on both sides of the Atlantic. The ultimate winner will be determined entirely by the foundation. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I'll see you next time as we continue to decode the systems running our world.